then again with respect to x, and then with respect to y. Similarly here 1 1 2, so from left to right, and similarly here x x y, so first with respect to x, and then with respect to x again, then with respect to y. But if we use this kind of notations, the order is from right to left. So for example, in this del cube f upon del y del x means first we differentiate with respect to this x, then with respect to again x, and then with respect to y. And this is because del x is coming, one can have this notation also. So this is about the order in which we take the derivative, and that is about the notation also, that whenever we have subscript notation, we refer it from left to right, and whenever we have curly f by curly x or y, then we refer from right to left. Okay, higher order derivatives of a function of n variables have similar definition, and we can see that if f is a function of n variables, there may be n squared second partial derivatives at a particular point, and we can talk of higher order derivatives also. So for example, if we for n is equal to 1, we have only one derivative, because if we have function of one variable, only one, and that will be ordinary derivative. If n is equal to 2, then we have four partial derivatives, which we have seen just now, that it is f11, f12, f21 and f22. If we have n is equal to 3, then we have 3 squared partial derivatives of the second order, and we can go ahead by taking n large. Let us take an example. If example is like this, that if fxy is equal to say x cube y minus y cos hyperbolic xy, then find fx, that is first partial derivative with respect to x at xy and fy at xy, and then mixed partial derivatives like fxy, that is first derivative with respect to x and then y, and then fyx at xy. So let us see that how we can obtain the derivatives. So as Dr. Thomas told, that when we take the partial derivatives, for example with respect to x, then we take the ordinary derivative of the function by keeping y fixed, and therefore let us see on this slide. So therefore if you look at this particular function, when we want fx at xy, we keep y fixed. So if you consider here y fixed, that is y is a constant, this is derivative will be y is constant, that remains as it is, and derivative of x cube will be 3 into x squared. So derivative of the first term here, it will be 3 into x squared y. Here again we are keeping y fixed, so this is a fixed constant, and we take the derivative of cos hyperbolic xy. So because of cos hyperbolic xy is derivative sin hyperbolic xy, so this will be y, then cos hyperbolic x derivative of cos hyperbolic xy, that is sin hyperbolic xy, and then derivative of the function xy, and because y is fixed and derivative of x will be 1, so it will be y, so y is multiplied here, so finally the derivative of the second term here becomes, it is minus y squared into sin xy. Then to find out the fxy, we should differentiate this fx with respect to y. That means we should keep then x fixed, and we should take the derivative with respect to y, which we can find as follows. First term is say 3x squared y. So because x is fixed, 3x squared is a constant, and derivative of y with respect to y is 1, so you have 3x squared here. Then here you have y squared sin hyperbolic xy, and we are differentiating with respect to y, and both are functions of y squared as well as sin xy, both are functions of y. So first we use the multiplication rule here, ગુણાકારનો નિયમ વાપરશું. તો y squared નું ડેરિવેટિવ કરીએ તો it is 2y, and sin xy sin hyperbolic xy, a function એમનું એમ રહે, so other function remains as it is, and then we keep y squared fixed. So y squared fixed, and derivative of sin hyperbolic xy is cos hyperbolic xy, and into the value x. So this is the fxy, that means derivative of fx with respect to y. Then we take the derivative of f with respect to y. So in this function, in the given function itself, x cube is constant, derivative with respect to y is then x cube, and then here is also x is fixed, and x is fixed, and so derivative of y will be 1. So first term becomes minus cos hyperbolic xy, and then y we keep as it is, and derivative of cos hyperbolic xy will be sin hyperbolic xy, and into x because we are differentiating with respect to y. So that will be our second first partial derivative, that is fy, and the derivative of that function, that is fyx, that is first derivative with respect to y and that with respect to x, it will be like this, that you can see here you have x cube, so the derivative of that will be 3x squared, and then you have cos hyperbolic xy, and that's derivative is nothing but minus y times sin xy. And for the third, because here it is a function of means you have y is constant, but you have x and sin hyperbolic xy, so we have to use the multiplication rule, and so the derivative will be this value. And after simplifying, you can see that because these two terms are same, and you can write this as 3x squared minus 2y sin hyperbolic xy and minus xy squared cos hyperbolic xy. Now you can observe here that fxy, that is the derivative of f with respect to x first and then with respect to y, is this value 3x squared minus 2y sin hyperbolic xy minus xy squared cos hyperbolic xy. So it is this value, and we can see that f yx at xy, that is also 3x squared minus 2y sin hyperbolic xy minus xy square. You can see again that these two are same value, right hand sides of this and this are the same. That means the mixed partial for the above function, the mixed partial derivatives f xy at xy and f yx at xy are equal. So for this particular function, when finding the second partial derivative with respect to x and y, we can see that the order of differentiation is immaterial. That means either we can first differentiate with respect to x and then with respect to y, or first with respect to y and then with respect to x. It is not it is not a matter of any problem, because of both are having the same values. So this condition holds actually for many functions, but not all functions. For example, we can have the following example. So let us see an example in which these two derivatives, that is f12 and f21 at 0 0, that is mixed partial derivatives, are not same. Actually we are going to write like this. So we are writing like this, that find f12 at 0 0 and f21 at 0 0 if fxy is this function. So when xy is different from 0 0, we are defining it is like this, xy into x squared minus y squared upon x squared plus y squared, and when the point is 0 0, we are having it is value 0. We have taken this example here to show that the order in which we take the derivatives, it is important, because above we have seen that for this particular function it is not material, it is immaterial, but not for all functions this is true. So here is a specific example in which the order in which we take the partial derivatives is important. That means if we take first partial derivative with respect to x and then with respect to y, or if we take first with respect to y and then with respect to x, the results are not necessarily the same. Okay, let us see how we can do this. So look at this example. Here we want to find out the f12 and f21 at 0 0. So before finding the second derivative, first of all let us look at the f12 is nothing but the derivative of f1, and f21 is derivative of f2 with respect to x. This is with respect derivative of f1 with respect to y. So first of all let us find out f1 at 0 y for every y in R. So f1 at 0 y, it was for that, first of all let us look at y is equal to 0, and so let us try to find whether f1 at 0 0 exists or not. Now by definition of the partial derivatives as defined by Dr. Thomas, in the beginning, you can see that if you want to look at f1 at 0 0, it is this limit, provided the limit exists, it will be f1 at 0 0. And here we can see that if we consider f at 0 plus delta x comma 0 minus f at 0 0 upon delta x, and then you can see that by definition of this particular function, because here the second coordinate y is 0, its value is 0. Similarly, in the here it is f0 0, and by definition of the function f0 0 is also 0, so it is 0 minus 0 upon delta x, so it is 0 and then the limit, and therefore it should be 0. That means this limit exists. That means the partial derivatives f1 at 0 0 exist, and its value is nothing but the value of this particular limit, so f1 at 0 0 is 0. So for this particular function, f1 at 0 y, where when y is equal to 0, is 0. And now let us look at the same derivative when y is different from 0. So you can write, so for 0 not equal to y in R is the set of all real numbers. Look at this particular quantity. If this limit of this exists, and this limit exists, then it will be the derivative f1 at 0 y. So look at this, f at 0 delta x comma y minus f at 0 y upon delta x. By the definition of the function, the first term here is f at delta xy, and so it is nothing but, by definition you can see here that when fxy is there, it is xy into x squared minus y squared upon x squared plus y squared. So here it should be delta x into y, because here in place of x here we have delta x, so delta x into y into delta x squared minus y squared upon delta x squared plus y squared. And you can see that minus f at 0 y, and again we look at the definition. Because of the product xy is here, when x any one of these two is 0, the function has the value 0, because here x is 0, because we are looking at f at 0 y, that value will be 0 and divide by delta x. So we can see in this expression, let us have this slide. So in this expression, this delta x cancels, because 0 is there, and this delta x cancel, it is non-zero, we are taking limit as delta x tends to 0. So it will be limit of this particular expression y into delta x squared minus y squared upon delta x squared plus y squared, when delta x of course tends to 0. And now in this expression, if you put delta x is equal to 0, we have no problem, and so we can put it because it is a rational function and denominator doesn't become 0. So by putting delta x is equal to 0 in this equation, what we get is here y into minus y squared upon y squared, and so y squared gets cancelled and we have the result minus y. That means this limit exists and its value is minus y for any non-zero y, and therefore f1, that is first partial derivative at 0 at y, exists and its value is minus y. So if you combine these two, one is this, that f1 at 0 0 is 0, and f1 at 0 y is equal to minus y for every non-zero y, we can see that f1 at 0 y is equal to minus y for every y are either y is 0 or non-zero. When non-zero, we have this particular equation here, when 0 we have f1 at 0 0, so here it will be 0, and so this is 0, which can be considered as minus 0 also. So we have equation 1, that f1 at 0 y is equal to minus y for every y in R. Now let us look at the derivative f2 at x0 for each x in R. So here also, first of all, we find out the derivative f2 0 0, that is when x is equal to 0, and it is the limit of this particular limit of this particular fraction, that is this limit. So limit delta y tends to 0, f of 0 and 0 plus delta y, so increment in y minus f0 0 upon delta y. Both of these quantities are 0 by definition of the function, and therefore f2 0 0 exists and its value is also 0. Now let us look at the derivative f2 at 0 0 when it is not equal to 0. So for any 0 not equal to x in R, you can see that we want f2 at x0, so we have fx 0 plus delta y minus fx at 0 upon delta y, and that can be seen that because now you have here x comma delta y, so by definition it is x into delta y into x squared minus delta y squared upon x squared plus delta y squared minus 0 upon delta y, and so delta y is cancelled. So limit delta y tends to 0 of x into x squared minus delta y squared upon x squared plus delta y squared, and divided. And so if you put delta y is 0, then we can see that we can have it is x. So f2 x0 exists, and f2, this is by mistake, here it should be x and here it should be 0. So f2 at x0 is equal to x. So therefore we have this. And so we can see that if we want now the derivative f12, it is nothing but the derivative of f1. So f1 at 0, 0 plus delta y minus f1 at 0 divided by delta y. We have already shown that this value is minus y, so we are getting here minus delta y minus 0 upon this, so minus 1. And so f1 to 0 exists and its value is minus 1. Next, look at f2 0 plus delta x 0 minus f2 0 0 upon delta x, and this is limit of delta x minus 0 upon delta x, so 1. So we can see that f2 1 at 0 0 exists and its value is 1. So thus in this case f12 at 0 0 is different from f21 at 0 0. So we can see that in this example the partial derivatives f12 at xy and f21 at xy are not equal at 0 0. There are certain conditions under which this can be equal, and that will be given in the following theorem. So we have this theorem that suppose that f is a function of two variables x and y defined on an open disk B x0 y0 r, and fx, fy, fxy and fyx are also defined on B. Furthermore, suppose that fxy and fyx are continuous on B, then fxy at x0 y0 is equal to fy at x0 y0. So we have this condition that provided these derivatives are continuous, these partial derivatives do become equal, and therefore it is immaterial to whether differentiate with respect to x first or with respect to y first. Okay. Usually the partial derivatives measures the rate of change of the function value xy in the direction of x and y respectively. Here we generalize these definitions of partial derivatives to obtain the rate of change of a function with respect to any direction, and this leads to the definition of a directional derivative. So directional derivative is defined in this way. Let f be a function of two variables x and y. If f is a function of two variables x and y, and if u bar is the unit vector cos theta I plus sin theta j, then the directional derivative of f in the direction of u bar denoted by du bar f is given by this particular